Hello everyone, and welcome to Deckbuilding Derezzed. I'm your host, Code Marvelous, and today I'm joined by a guest from across the ocean, Catherine from the UK Meta.
Hey Dan, how you doing?
Good, thank you very much for coming on the show.
No problem, it's very, very nice to be here.
So, you are actually the second second guest I've had to complete a husband-wife combo of guests that I've had on my show. And we're going to be talking a little bit about a really interesting and modernized Geist build that you worked on. But before we get into that, why don't you tell me a little bit about your Netrunner story, how you started playing, what your competitive experience has been like, and what attracts you to, Geist.
Yeah, sure. I started playing Netrunner about 2.5 years ago. My husband Chris hosts One Last Click, and he had been playing with our friend Edie for probably about a year by that time. They'd already started the podcast, and it was over Christmas. We had just had a lot of time spare. There was, I think I'd read Lee Alexander's article about learning Netrunner, and I was really interested in the idea of trying to learn something new, something a bit different I hadn't really tried before. So Chris got out the teaching decks over Christmas, and I went to my first tournament about 4 months later.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So why everybody's favorite open shirt criminal for this build?
So I don't know if you know this. The London regional last year, I think it was probably one of about the second or third biggest regional in the UK, was won by Brendan, a player from Oxford, with Geist and Sol, and that was a Spycam's Geist build. And there was quite a lot of once Tech Traders had come out, Geist had got a lot better. Quite a few people were playing him with Off-Campus Apartment. So I played a bit of that last year, and then it was early this year when we were still waiting for the MWL. Like, things were a bit stale. I wasn't really sure I wanted to play, and I thought I'd try and play something a bit kind of off meta, really, just go and have some fun. So I was playing a load of Geist and Blue Sun, which was absolutely terrible because there's so much employee strike and asset spam around. So I went back and revisited the deck I played last year, which was kind of largely based on Brendan's one. Started updating it with some of the newer cards.
That's so interesting that you mentioned that you also played Blue Sun, because I think that Geist and Blue Sun both do a very interesting thing where they get paid for something that normally costs them money, right? Geist gets paid to break ice, whereas most runners don't. And Blue Sun gets, paid to res ice, which most corps do not. So you're kind of falling into an interesting mechanic trend there.
Yeah. Geist is actually quite similar. I think he's a little bit similar maybe to Leela, and definitely kind of similar to Loss in that the kind of incentive that he gives the corp about resing ice or not resing ice is it changes that maths for you. It changes how the corp needs to place their ice. It changes when they res it, depending on what breaks he's got out, because chances are if it's towards the end of the game, you're actually helping Geist by resing ice.
Yeah, I mean, in games that I've won against him, we have a member of our meta that will kind of go back to Geist periodically, and a lot of times the way I win games is by just rushing out behind a single piece of ice in a remote and just resing literally nothing else to give him no other way to make money.
Yeah, I've been rushed out by, the Rushy Polana deck with Grail. I've been rushed out by that so many times as Geist. It's, you're just digging for whatever it is that you need, and suddenly they've got 2 Nisei counters and you can't do anything.
And that's really bad. It's very problematic for criminals.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's dig into it. If you're going to go over this deck, where do you want to start?
I think starting with the events, actually. I spent quite a long time not playing Geist with Siphon, and actually I think quite a few of the decks last year didn't run Siphon at all.
Yeah.
With running on very small numbers of events. Haven't actually got any of them up at the moment. I think Brendan's did have Siphon, and actually I went back and compared my deck to the one from last year, and it's actually really similar. I think almost down to the political operative. Mad Dash is a really great card.
It's so good. It's my favorite. No, it's like my favorite run event. I play a lot of Shaper, and like indexing Mad Dash is like a whole new like rush win condition. Just
Yeah.
one card being added made like Shaper have like a
Yeah.
rush component.
Yeah, it's incredible. I play a lot of Wayland, and like the number of times it's like, oh, indexing, 2 mad dash, oh, you're on 5 points. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, so that's really good with Spy Camera. Like that was a really easy swap out. A lot of Geists used to run Freedom through Equality. I think Mad Dash makes a lot more sense. Although it's sometimes nice to be able to clear a current.
Yeah, but you could just score to clear a current, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you've got Spy Cameras down.
Just to kind of go over the key interaction, we mentioned indexing in Mad Dash. Mad Dash is good if you know that there's an agenda. So Spy Cam says 6 times per levy, you know what the top card of R&D is.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it means that you can use Mad Dash, and as long as you've kept the board clear of shuffle effects, you can make sure that you're going to land it.
Yeah, and actually one of my favorite things to do with Spy Camera is if you see an agenda off the top, but you think you can't get into R&D and you probably can't get into the remote, or you can get into R&D but you probably can't get into the remote, and there's a Jackson, just force a shuffle anyway.
Yep.
Because you don't want them getting it.
Yep. So we've got 2 account siphons, as you mentioned, for the cred denial.
Yeah.
We've got hostages. Now, there's an obvious target that I would say, but talk to me a little bit about the use of hostage here.
So until Aaron Moron came along, hostage was pretty much just for tech traders. Although I do really like doing, once you've got a trader or 2 up, I really do like hostaging for a street peddler because that can really speed things up because it gives you loads of options basically. If I've got a trader down, depending on the matchup, I will hostage for Aaron because as Geist, you're quite slow. You're probably sitting back. You're probably letting at least one agenda go before you're ready to go and do something. So that sets you up with some nice Aaron counters. Like particularly against DCF, they're going to set themselves back a little bit, like by bioticking out. You can go in and siphon.
It's also worth noting that Aaron covers one of Geist's biggest weaknesses, which was previously like breaking news, all-seeing eye shenanigans was just like devastating because it was just like a complete reset. Now you're like, nah, we're not doing that.
Yeah, actually, that's really true. Breaking news, all-seeing eye is absolutely would be terrible. Although I haven't seen it recently, which is quite nice.
Right, but just tags in general. He's never been good at getting rid of tags.
No, Forge is quite nice actually. Between Forger and On the Lamb, it's pretty hard to. It can be pretty hard to tag Geist. It's quite fun to. I think one of my favourite plays I did recently was running a giant server. I knew there was an Ash at the end. Wasn't quite sure if I'd had the money to get in, so took a tag for a Minichi trace, and then popped the Forger to get the money to pay off the Ash trace.
Oh, it's so good.
It was amazing.
It's so good. I love On the Lamb. On the Lamb has always felt like a Geist card for me because if you've got all 3 tech traders down, it refunds itself.
I know, it's so good, and you can say one thing it back if you really have to.
Oh, it's glorious. And so we've got 1 legwork, not necessarily surprising. I don't think I've ever seen very many more than 1 because usually agendas just pile up and all you need is 1.
Yeah, I do sometimes want to, because sometimes it can be easier to get into HQ than a remote. Because, like you say, people are just trying to get stuff out of hand into remote, or like you say, waiting for a scoring window to come along. But because you've got levy, you've got this version 1's 2 same old thing. You've got options for you can hopefully legwork more than once. Yeah.
And then the last 2 events are the lion's share of the influence, and we have 1 Maker's Eye.
Yeah, so I went for run events over things like RDI or HQ interface because Geist is really good at making 1 really big run per turn. So you can click through stuff if you need to, or you put down a load of breakers and burst in. So something like Maker's Eye kind of really suits his style. And it's great even if you have been keeping an eye on R&D with spy cameras. You know there's nothing in HQ, or you know there's probably nothing in HQ. Even if you see something off the top that's not an agenda, Maker's Eye is potentially still a good call. Yeah. Because you know that there's going to be something. You're hopefully going to be something coming along.
And we have 2 Levy AR lab accesses, which is just pretty good in Geist. He tears through the deck and throws a lot of stuff in the trash on the first pass. Now, are you finding yourself doing that as well, where like you're just trying to get the tech traders up, and everything else you're just like whatever?
Yeah, I like to burn through the hoppers. I always think that once you've got a couple of traders down, the first hopper you pop you're practically set to go, because you draw so many cards. You probably can afford to get some breakers down, as long as you've got some more link, which can be a little bit of an issue. You're probably set to go in the next turn. So if you've got a hopper on the table, you can go from 0 to ready to contest a remote in 1 turn. It's really good.
How many games? This is something I always ask, because my Geist, when I play him, I also run 2 levies. How often are you finding that you're using the second levy?
Second levy, I don't think, not that often. I wish I kept count actually, because I don't actually know. I generally levy once. The only times I haven't levied to my memory is generally against yellow decks, so NEH Assets Bam or CTM.
Right.
But the second levy can be nice to catch people out if they have locked down your first one, or one's gone in the bin and you've lost your same old thing. The number of times I've done a second levy and they've gone, aha, I was hoping you didn't have that. It's quite fun. It's
true. All right, so that's the events. Where do we want to go from here?
I think if we go into the hardware, so I was just mentioning Link earlier, 2 Forges is really obvious for Geist. Until recently, I wouldn't have run anything else. The ability to avoid and remove tags is really helpful. It's just, it's really good.
Yeah. What do you think of it? What do you think of the new console for him?
Is that the one in Terminal Directive?
Yeah.
+1 memory, +1 link. I can't remember what the ability is.
When you run HQ, they draw a card, and you draw a card as well.
I think between the two, I'd still prefer Forger because it's so cheap to get down.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that making the corp draw cards is a good thing for the runner, particularly particularly when you're trying to get into, you want the corp to be slowing down. You don't want to be feeding them cards. And Geist has so many other ways to draw. You don't need to be getting that by running HQ.
That's fair. So we got 2 sports hoppers. Some really good cars are important.
Yeah. I'd like 3. I'd like a full garage of cars, but I don't have the space. Well, I probably do have the space in this deck. It could be made, but I was putting in fun cards like On the Lam.
I mean, it's not just, On the Lam, like, Aaron Marone's good, but, like, On the Lam just says, hard-hitting news, please go away. Like, it says, I start my next turn with 1 tag, and I'm net 3 credits.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really good.
Yeah. I mean, sports software, I think, is much more flexible. You'd want that in all situations. On the Lam is much better, again, something like hard-hitting news. It also makes you practically unkillable as much as Geist is already unkillable. You always have to put
the asterisk next to it. Unkillable. Some conditions apply.
Depends if you can find your car to get away in.
And then, one of my all-time favorite pieces of hardware, Spy Camera. I think the theme here is great. I think the ability is, like, balanced and good. I think the fact that it's a 6 of, so you have to, like, fill up your deck with it. It's just, it's so good.
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day, have I ever used the click ability on Spy Camera? And I said yes, when I accidentally clicked it on Jinteki.
Yeah.
Instead of the trash.
I think maybe once or twice. And I only did it to figure out if the specific breaker I needed was in the cards. Or if I should have, like, just abandoned the remote and gone for the essentials. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I suppose actually it could be really useful. I mean, I've never done it, but you could like set up a street peddler if you wanted to, if you had one in hand.
Yeah. But yeah, spy camera's so good. So
I know.
good. Yeah. So where do you want to go? You want to go icebreakers or do you want to go resources?
Let's do icebreakers. Not really a lot to say here.
This
You
seems
got
good.
the you got the nine cloud breakers. Um, they're just, I mean, they got so much better when Tech Trader came out because now you're getting paid. Now you're getting paid to break ice.
Seems
Um,
good.
the mongoose, I've been running one mongoose for ages, and it can be a problem. I've run into a couple of people who just stacked sentries all the way along R&D, and it's like, actually, I can't. I can only deal with that once per levy now. It's a real problem.
That's
Um,
interesting that you mention that because the gentleman who plays Geist in my meta has frequently mentioned that the biggest enemy of Geist is stacked sentries.
It stacked anything actually. I played a game recently against Food Coats, which had it was 3 Itchies and an Architect on R&D, 2 Fairchilds, a Turing, and a Ravana on HQ, and a Sada and 3 Eli's on the remote.
That's pretty bad.
It was awful.
It's pretty
It
bad.
was a pretty close game, but it was terrible. And I had Peregrine. I did not have Gordian Blade. It was awful.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty miserable.
Yeah, yeah. I went for paperclip in this version because I'd been fiddling around and found that I normally had about 2 floating influence free, so I was experimenting with things like algo trading, which was really bad, Da Vinci, which was really fun, but that was in the version where I was running median, so it's really difficult to use. So I fiddled around with the influence and swapped Corrado for paperclip, which is just really nice because you can track it in the bin off a peddler if you have you install something else off a peddler and you get it out of the bin. It's really, really useful.
Yeah. Peregrine, which makes me deeply sad, but I understand why it's here.
I have had so much fun with Peregrine against ETF decks.
It's so expensive though to
I
get
know.
down.
I know, but you put it down. They're a little bit poor. You put it down. They've got, I don't know, something like a Fairchild on HQ, and they're feeling pretty smug. So you've got some Aaron counters because you have to let an agenda go. Then you siphon them, and you derez. You clear your tags with your Aaron counters, and suddenly they don't have HQ ice anymore, and they're broke, and you've got loads of money.
Yeah. I know. I get it. I just like criminal decoders are so expensive.
It's so expensive, and it's not brilliant. But there have been so many strength 5 sentries around. I don't know so much about now, but like Tolbooth, Ravana, Fairchild 3, all strength 5, which Peregrine deals with pretty well.
Yeah, I mean it does it as efficiently as a Gordian Blade.
Yeah, that was kind of my measurement. It's like it's not that much more to install.
Now against things like Lotus Field, it's pretty miserable.
Yeah, it's not great. But again,
great.
if you can derez it.
But yeah, so yeah, that's the breakers. Yeah, also it's just if people watching at home, if you're newer to the game or just if you've never picked up Geist, I strongly recommend it because nothing feels better than breaking like an archer or another like sacrifice agenda piece of ice with like a shiv and just gaining money. It just it feels so good.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you thought you were going to tax me with that.
No. But thank you for throwing that agenda into space, though. I'm a really big fan of that. But yeah, no, the Breaker Suite seems really solid. One of the questions that I have is, obviously we're a couple weeks behind here. This came out April 16th, which is probably, I think, a little more than 2 weeks ago. How has this kind of build been serving you now that everybody's mad about Scorpios?
I played a couple of games against Scorpius, and I found it really, really stressful because this, as Geist, your deck is so finely tuned towards one thing, which is your bin abilities, and every time you use one, it gets chipped away at. I've been tweaking my build since then, and first I slowed it down to try and deal with the more sort of Glacier stuff that I thought was coming out, but then it turned out to be too slow. I think I've actually seen Geist do really good work against Scorpios before. at the meetup on Tuesday. I think 3 of us were on Geist, and I got to watch someone playing Geist versus Scorpios, and they're chipping away and they're taking stuff out of your deck. But actually, there's no hard end the run on R&D. You can just go charging through if you want to and win with because you've got your spy cams. So I'm not. It's maybe not as bad a matchup as I originally thought. It's still, I don't know. I think you can probably get around it.
Yeah, that's fair.
In terms of kind of, being very considerate about when you trash stuff and what you trash.
All right. So talking about resources, we've got Aaron for all the various reasons we've discussed. We have 3 Fall Guys.
Yeah, Fall Guys. Yeah.
So much money. How about 5 money and a card draw? It's
so good.
How about we play Restructure but also draw a card? Right?
It's just amazing.
Yeah, but from 0 credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I had version before this that I was running had Wasteland in as my 2 influence flex, and popping a Fall Guy on the corpse turn for 6 credits and a card was just.
It's really good.
Just so good.
It's really good. Yeah. We got Polop. Polop's pretty good too.
Yeah, I threw this in because I took it to an event where the new MWL was legal, so I was expecting a lot of people to be going back to Polana.
Yeah.
Leading to Steward Caprice.
Same old things. Also very good.
I went for 2 same old things in this version because I'm up to 10 events and I'm worried about losing some of them to peddlers. And also being able to recur stuff like legwork and Maker's Eye is really useful.
Yeah. And you can make money by reusing events.
Yeah, you can. I've paid 1 credit overall for a levy before, thanks to Wasteland.
Yeah, it's so good. So we got Street Peddlers, and Street Peddlers really make Geist go. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Street Peddlers adds incredible speed to Geist. The fact that you use it in a paid ability window rather than a click or anything is just incredible, because you've got your peddlers out, you've got your sort of little gang of street urchins, and suddenly no one knows what's on there. You know what's on there, but the corp has no idea, and suddenly you can get in where they thought you couldn't, or you can draw cards to avoid being flatlined. It's just, and the fact that you get tech trader credits, it's such a perfect card for guys.
Yeah, I mean, and you could chain these together. I have in a previous game street peddled into a free forger to clear a tag mid run to draw 2 cards, and it's just like, and gaining, I think it was 2 credits each time, so I could break the final piece. Yeah, Geist enables you to do these like Rube Goldberg turns or Rube Goldberg runs where you just suddenly have money that they couldn't have accounted for.
Yeah, it's just so much fun to play in real life, because you put this for a card and 2 credits, and put this to install this for free, and put that for more cards and more credits, and it's just stuff lying around all over the place. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And if someone hasn't seen Geist before, they're like, "What is this?
What is going on?" And then the card that makes Geist go, Tech Trader.
Yeah, this is what makes Geist, well, I would almost say playable.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. Like, so Geist ability says whenever you use a trash can ability, you gain a card, which is good, but not great.
Mm.
For those of you who aren't familiar, once you have all 3 of these down, every single time you use one of your many disposable tools in this deck, you gain 1 credit per each of these that are down. So now using a breaker that cost you 1 to break a piece of ice now nets you a positive 2 credits. Right? If it's a shiv, it nets you 3. If you use a spy camera, you can now use spy cameras for like a clickless easy mark. So it's just this ebb and flow of paid ability economy that is only possible. I remember when this card was spoiled. What is that in? Yeah, business first. I was just like, well, we've actually got a game plan now for Geist. I was so good.
Yeah, it's so good. I think there's maybe about 30 bins in this deck. If you can use them all with Tech Trader, that is
quite a bit of money. And then, so here's something I'm interested in. So talk to me about the use of Utopia Shard, why it's in here, what's some of kind of the key plays that you're hoping to get with it.
So Utopia Shard was a bit of a last-minute inclusion for this for the event I took this to, which is the Bring Another Brit to Worlds event in Aldershot a few weeks ago. I didn't really have any tech for CI, either CI7 or HD CI decks, so threw in a shard on the basis that it might be useful. I think I used it like once all day, and it didn't get me any agendas, so it was just it was an experiment. I've taken it out now.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. So that's the deck. Catherine, thank you very much for coming on the show and going over everything with me. I really appreciate it.
Cool.
And what we're going to do now is we're going to go on competitive Jinteki, and we're going to take the deck for a spin, and we're going to see how we're going to do it. And Catherine's going to be pulling the levers on my play and walking us through how to pilot.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, everybody watching at home, we'll catch you in the test run. And until we see you again, always be running.